message about party reform.
My acknowledgement of the Indigenous people upon whose land we meet and acknowledge their elders, both past and present. I'd like to thank Per Capita and Chairman Josh Funder. I'd like to thank Noah Carroll for helping organise today's session and discussion. I'd like to acknowledge members of the party who are here and supporters of Labor and people who want to see federal Labor win the next federal election. Thank you for coming here. Should also acknowledge my wife Chloe, who's had to listen to several iterations of this speech, so any of the good points you may give her a pat on the back, any mistakes are all mine. But as you know, I was originally scheduled to speak to you on Monday, April the 7th. Since then, passages of what I was planning to say have been reported, followed by a lot of very well-intentioned advice about what else I should say. But what the last 2.5 weeks has reminded me of is the widespread, genuine passion about rebuilding the Labor Party. We in this room, and indeed many tens of thousands of people like us, deeply love our Labor Party and we want to see Labor do better. Our passion, I believe, is drawn from our abiding faith in progressive politics and a deep-seated belief in changing our country for the better. I'm sure, like me, you find it hard to watch the Abbott Liberal government do things to the country we love which we think are deeply regressive. We watch them trying to tear down everything which has been worked so hard to build up. We watch them try and impose their backward-looking, twisted priorities on our nation. We've seen and witnessed the surrender of thousands of jobs without even a fight. We've seen that quiet, apathetic, shoulder-shrugging denigration about the practical difficulties of the National Disability Insurance Scheme. Today we read about slugging families with a GP tax. We've seen the concoction of a false budget emergency to slash programs and to break election promises. We've seen pensioners worrying about whether or not they'll be punished, and we've seen some of our wealthiest Australians being promised $75,000 for paid parental leave. We've seen the science of climate change attacked. We've seen the CSIRO scientists sacked. We've seen the wrong message being sent on racism and bigotry, and we're seeing the ABC being bullied in front of our eyes. Now, why do they do these things, the Liberal government? It's because the Liberal Party always put the interests of the powerful lobby groups, the vested interests, ahead of the national interest. This is why they exist. This is what they govern for. So now more than ever, it is important that our party, the Labor Party, live up to its goal of being the party for change, the party of optimism and opportunity for all. To fulfil our mission, though, to live up to our values, the values which enthuse us in politics, we must be in government. There is no point to us merely gathering in furious agreement and righteous indignation about the Abbott Liberal government. If we want to change the government, if we want to change the nation, then we ourselves must change. So today is a day for facing up to uncomfortable and hard truths. Tony Abbott did not put Labor in opposition. The Australian people put us in opposition. And unless we change, that is where Labor will stay federally. Unless we change, we will be forced to watch the Abbott government undo and unmake much of the progress which we think makes this one of the most special countries on earth. It is only when Labor can form governments that we can take the actions and change the laws which we require for this nation's progress. For Labor to form and to have the privilege of forming government, we must have an honest conversation about why we lost power. For too long, we have allowed the characterisation that Labor only has an image problem, a message problem, that it's only a selling problem, and but for want of selling our message better, then we would still be in government. No, we would not. The argument that we only need to change perceptions and change the way that people see us, this is not good enough for us. We need to be more serious and recognise that the challenges confronting federal Labor are more serious than this. We need to change ourselves. We need to change our party. If we don't change, then we put our very future at risk. For Labor to build a modern, outward-looking, confident and fair Australia, then we have to be a modern, outward-looking, confident and fair Labor Party. Now, this process, I believe, has begun. We had the leadership process or contest last year, which I believe for the first time provided many thousands of our members, along with members of our parliamentary party, a genuine chance to have a say in the Labor Party and its direction. That was, I think we would all agree, a big step. Today it's now time for us to take our next big steps. Today I want to announce a major campaign to help rebuild the Labor Party, to renew its sense of purpose, to reinforce our values of democracy as being central to the way we conduct ourselves. This campaign is driven in part by my mandate as the winner of the first membership-based leadership contest in the Labor Party. This is a campaign today to create a Labor Party that is stronger because we have more members and we give these more members more of a say. A campaign to create a big party, a nation-embracing party, a party that represents and reflects our Australian home, a membership-based party once again, a Labor Party with 100,000 members. For Labor to rebuild, we must start by involving more people in the rebuilding process. More than 4 million people voted for us in the last election. Nearly 300,000 people have indicated they want to receive our emails about what the Labor Party is doing. These are Labor's people. These are Australians who share our beliefs, who share our ideals, who rely on a Labor government. There are millions of Australians who trust, who hope, who have faith in the Labor Party to represent them in the Australian political process. These are Labor people. These are our people. These are Australians who, because of Gough Whitlam, became the first in their family to ever go to university. These are Australians who first received universal superannuation, courtesy of the Hawke and Keating governments. These are Australians who are inspired by the national apology to the stolen generations. These are Australians who know that only Labor can and will deliver the life-changing reform of the National Disability Insurance Scheme. These are Australians who simply want good jobs for their kids and decent, dignified, affordable aged care for their parents. These are our supporters, our people, Labor people. I want these people, Labor people, to be our members. Today I have written to George Wright, our National Secretary, outlining my priorities for rebuilding our party and the immediate actions I believe that start this journey of rebuilding the Labor Party. First, we need to make it easier to join our party. I've been a member of the Labor Party for nearly 30 years. But when I was 16, it took me nearly a year to jump through all of the hoops to join the Labor Party. But 3 decades on, it is still too hard for people to join the Labor Party. I, like all of you, groan when we hear the anecdotal stories of people who think that they've joined the Labor Party only to find out the paperwork's been lost, the cat's eaten the homework, that in the age of the internet, the carbon didn't work. We need to change that, and I want to change that. By July, we will launch a one-click online joining process. Nothing less will do. In a time when we can book our flights, we can do our banking and file our tax returns, every supporter should be able to become a Labor member in minutes, not months. I've also asked our National Secretary to work with our 8 state and territory branches to establish low-cost, uniform national membership fees. Labor should have a fee structure that includes young people, that includes people on low incomes, that includes students and trainees, that includes apprentices and the unemployed. But attracting new members is more than just the practicalities. It is about reaching out to new constituencies. We need to reach out to small business in Australia. We should no longer allow the Taxation Act to narrow our ambitions to who should vote for us. We need to reach out to the regional towns of Australia. It is not enough to say to people in regional Australia, because you don't have a big block vote, there's no chance of you ever representing Labor. These days must end. And of course, young people. Between 2010 and 2013, 400,000 people reached voting age who did not enrol to vote. 400,000. Young Australians who are leaving school, taking up an apprenticeship or a university place, moving out of home and looking for work, making adult decisions in an adult world where politics has consequences. But these young people, too many of whom, do not believe that Australian politics or that involvement in politics can deliver positive change, or that public policy can be affected which will impact on their lives which they can control. People who feel that their concerns are outside of the understanding of the daily discourse of political parties. We need to tackle the cynicism which says that involvement in the Labor Party won't help change the problems these people see in their communities. These are Labor people too. Every time I talk with young people about joining our party, someone asks, why would I want to join a political party? Well, if you want to change our party, you should join it. If you think the system is broken, help us fix it. If you care about improving our country, you have to be the change that you wish to see. If you care about what Australia will look like in 2020 and 2030, join us. If you care about education and healthcare, about the jobs of the future, about the public transport you ride, about the air you breathe, we need you to participate in the public debate, and you are welcome in the ranks of Labor. If you opt out, if you choose that very fashionable, cynical, nothing can change, a plague on both your houses attitude, you deprive our country of your talents, your experience, your passion, your ideals and your capacity to engage others. We want young people to see the Labor Party as their party of choice. If you don't engage in politics, you'll be governed by vested interests, by powerful, privileged voices. You know those voices. If you want proof, have a look at the would-be knights at the round table of Abbott's cabinet. Above all, if you want people to join, if we want people to join the Labor Party, we must make it clear that the Labor Party is capable of engaging with them and speaking for them and reflecting their views. But this path of modernisation, if we're truly serious about modernising our party and reaching out to constituencies who have not previously felt that modern politics speaks to their daily lives, then we do need to modernise ourselves. This has to start, in large part, with modernising our relationship with the trade union movement of Australia. I am a union member. I'm proud to be a union member. I believe in what unions do. I'm proud of what modern Australian trade unions have done, lifting the living standards of working people in Australia, seeking the fair go and embedding it in our community, making our workplaces amongst the safest in the world. Together, Labor and the union movement has created one of the most successful social democratic countries in the world. But we know that our world and our workforce are changing. We understand that as a party, we cannot be anchored in the past. We need to rise with this modern tide. Therefore, today I say, it should no longer be compulsory for prospective members of the Labor Party to join a union. It should no longer be compulsory for prospective members of the Labor Party to join a union. And I've instructed our National Secretary, working with our National Executive, to have this requirement removed from our rules. People have said, this is a symbolic change. Yes, it is. But it is more than that. It is a change which says that we are proud of our past, but that Labor is not exclusively for one group of Australians. We stand for an economy and a society where everyone prospers, a society where all benefit, an Australia where a fair go is for everyone, union and non-union employees, people defined by the Tax Act as employees and people defined as contractors by the Tax Act, the self-employed, the small business and the wage earners. This change makes it plain that in 2014, the Labor Party is not the political arm of any one group alone, that the Labor Party that we love is the political arm of all Australians, and that's how it should be. If I may say a couple of more things about Labor's relationship with the unions. The Abbott Royal Commission into Unions is gearing up. I know that many in our party and the union movement legitimately resent the political agenda behind this exercise. They know, and we know, that Tony Abbott has always been obsessed with discrediting the people of the union movement and, by association, the people of this Labor Party. The timing and focus of this Royal Commission is the sort of cynical and small-minded practice, the low use of high office, that is beginning to define this Prime Minister. But whatever the base political motive of Tony Abbott, there is the clear obligation to act in the face of criminal conduct. As a former union representative and as a minister, I've always supported actions that fight corruption. 2 years ago, as Workplace Relations Minister, I took the serious and unprecedented step of applying to the Federal Court to have the Health Services Union East Branch put into administration. The Federal Court agreed that the members of some branches of the HSU, some of the lowest paid and hardest working employees in Australia, were the victims of a blood-sucking culture of dysfunction and corruption amongst parts of their leadership. For me, it was straightforward. No one is above the law. No business, no union, no individual. Corruption is a profound insult. Corruption is a deep betrayal of everything that the Labor Party and union movement have stood for and fought for. Corruption has no place in modern Australia. It has no place in the boardroom, the office cubicle, the factory floor, the union office. Unlike Tony Abbott, I'm not interested in using the Royal Commission into unions as a star chamber to settle old scores. I won't abuse important judicial process by rushing to judgment or chasing headlines. But I will say this. If you have betrayed the trust of your members, you don't deserve to be in the union movement, you don't belong. If you are in the pockets of organised crime, you don't deserve protection and you won't get it from us. We don't want you, get out. All of us who hold the principles and values of our party dear, we must stand together. We must meet criminality corruption and misconduct with resolute strength. Our best defence is to rebuild our party with a new, more open, democratic and transparent model of membership. Rebuilding Labor means giving our members a choice and a voice, not just asking them for their vote. Rebuilding Labor means giving our members a voice, not just asking them for their money. We have to, in Labor, write a new democratic contract with our members. When the Labor Party was born in 1891, the vision of its founders was as a membership-based party. But in more recent times, the role of unions within the party, within our party, has devolved into a factional, centralised decision-making role. If we are to renew and rebuild the Labor Party, if we are to renew and rebuild our Labor Party, we must rebuild as a membership-based party, not a faction-based party. We need to be a broader, more inclusive party. A party where more people are involved, where more people are more involved more of the time. I would encourage state and territory parties to consider following the lead of federal Labor and elect their leaders using the 50-50 system. I admire John Robertson in New South Wales for his leadership on this issue. I congratulate ACT, Queensland and Tasmanian Labor who've already taken practical steps to empower their members by giving them a say in this matter. These initial changes are about respect. Respect for our members, respect for their values and their judgment. This is why we should be giving, and I propose that we do give, local ALP members a greater role in pre-selecting their local Labor candidates. Choosing a candidate for public office, a candidate to carry the Labor flag, is a solemn responsibility, and it should be the right of our engaged and active members. Right now, Labor pre-selection processes vary from state to state and territory, both in structure and in clarity. Here in our home state of Victoria, ALP candidates for the lower house are currently elected by a 50-50 vote of local members' vote being worth 50% and the central panel being worth 50%, this central panel elected by state conference. I have instructed our National Secretary, working with the National Executive, to liaise with his state and territory counterparts to increase the weight of local members' votes from 50%, for instance, in Victoria, to 70%, to increase the proportion and the weight of local members' votes by at least 20% across Australia, so that way, being a local member, and if you've got a strong view who the candidate is you want, you'll get your way and you won't be crunched by a deal. Of course, though, I believe there should be a threshold. There should be a certain amount of members, I propose for the House of Representatives, 300, so that the local ALP can claim to be representative, and this isn't a case of one small group replacing another small group. But I look forward to these debates occurring at the Victorian Conference. I believe that we should be encouraging our state branches to look at more primary-style community pre-selections in non-held seats, as we saw trialled by our New South Wales branch recently. I think it's a pretty exciting development, what we saw a couple of weeks ago. More than 1,000 members of their community cast their votes in the Campbelltown pre-selection. Over 1,000 people from all walks of life choosing a Labor candidate. This is an impressive number. This is proof that if we open our doors to the community will walk through the doors and respond to us. Trust begets trust. If the Labor Party is to rebuild as a membership-based party, we have to be community-based. We have to ensure our candidates come from all walks of life. It is true that in our 113 years, as Australia's oldest continuous party, Our pre-selections have gained a reputation, justifiably, for being rugged battles. But our pre-selections are also a valuable introduction to campaigning for our future Labor MPs. We should be proud of putting these contests in the open. We must place our faith in transparency and back the good judgment of our local Labor Party members. There will, of course, be times when Labor has an opportunity to pre-select a candidate of exceptional quality for a particular seat. But from now on, intervention by the National Executive should be the exception, not the rule. I remain committed to our affirmative action goals. I want this to be a cause that we all share. We must increase the number of female representatives in federal, state and territory parliaments, full stop. And I believe there are no shortcuts to diversity. We either believe it or we don't, and we believe it. Giving our members more of a say in pre-selections doesn't end with the House of Representatives. Friends, we need to change our Senate pre-selection process. I haven't quite said what the change is, but I appreciate the faith. Now, we have been well served by our senators, and we do have a motivated Senate team as I speak. But the rancour over the recent Western Australian process shows that in the future we need a method that provides a local voice in addition to a central component so we can select the best possible candidates. There are a range of views on the best way forward, but there can be no dancing around the truth. There has to be real change. Local Labor voices need to be heard in Senate pre-selections and the Senate process across Australia. The first steps can be taken now. I've instructed our National Secretary to work with the National Executive and Western Australian Labor to recommend the best way of giving local party members a meaningful say in the selection of Senate candidates. We will be setting a new standard for selecting Labor senators. We will be putting a new standard in to select Labor senators in the future. Do I have your support? The work in Western Australia will be used to inform our state branches in allowing local members to help contribute to Senate pre-selections nationally. This is not about the performance of our current senators. They are dedicated contributors for whose work I am grateful. This is not about revolution, but about evolution. This is about rebuilding Labor for the long haul, and this is about saying to people who don't have a big block vote behind them that, you know, the deck is not stacked and you will at least get an honest chance to put your name forward to present your ideas. That is long overdue in our processes. Now, we are about rebuilding for the long haul, so our faith in democratic decision-making should apply to the National Conference too. That's why I've asked New South Wales General Secretary Jamie Clements to help chair a committee to provide me with recommendations, concrete recommendations, about how we can make our national conference even more representative. I believe our goal for future national conferences should be a mix of people directly elected from and by Labor members and those elected by state conferences. Making Labor more democratic, making Labor more representative, is also about reaching out to union members, not just those in leadership positions, but encouraging members to join our party and to participate in our decision-making. Unions will always play a vital role in Australian society. They are an important safeguard against the diminution of fairness in our workplaces. I want union members to continue to play an important role in our party as members. So far, I have focused on changes that will give Labor members more of a say. The simple fact is, too, that we can propose all the rule changes we want, but if people don't see us standing for the right things, they won't join us. Rebuilding our party is not just a technical job of updating our rules. It is a moral task of renewing our ideas and our sense of purpose. This is why I've thrown my weight behind the decision of the last National Conference to undertake a major review of our national platform for the 2015 National Conference. Our National President, Jenny McAllister, members of the National Policy Forum, working alongside with Shadow Cabinet and caucus members, are engaged in these consultations. But I believe we can give all of our members a say in this process, and we should start with Chapter 1 of our platform. Chapter 1 contains Labor's enduring values. We need a new Chapter 1, a democratically drafted statement that captures what Labor stands for now and into the future. I know that we are a big party with a diversity of views about the future, but what I believe is that we can, by trusting our members, allow passionate debate for the solutions which Australia needs for its challenges. We also have a responsibility as an opposition to, and as an alternative government. We've got to be united in our sense of purpose. We must lock in behind the policy position once arrived at. If we are not united, if we are not focused, then we risk allowing the Abbott Liberal government and their twisted priorities off the hook, and Australia can't afford that. Friends, rebuilding always means risk. Rebuilding means asking some people to give up power and to share it with others. Difficult tasks. We are about challenging the status quo, but that is what our great party is about, when we challenge ourselves to be better. It's what separates us from the protectors of privilege, the Liberal Party of Australia. Rebuilding is never painless, but I believe that simply arguing for the status quo and saying that rebuilding our party is not the main game is actually a greater risk to our future. It provides us with the alternative of an arrogant, weaker, less relevant Labor Party. A party left trying to fight the great battle of ideas with one arm behind its back. If we do not change, if we do not rebuild in the manner which I have outlined, then we are doomed to see our great mission live on only in the archives, that our great successes will grow dusty in the trophy cabinet of history. We owe it to the future, we owe it to the millions of people who have faith and belief and trust in Labor not to do this. We cannot stand by and allow Tony Abbott to punish the people who rely upon Labor. We cannot submit to the twisted priorities of this Prime Minister and this government. Australia will always need Labor governments. Labor reforms is what Australia needs, Labor vision, Labor compassion. But it falls to us to make the case to this generation. We cannot say that Labor is ready to serve until we can say that Labor is ready to change. Today is a significant step, but it is only the start of the journey. This journey will take time. We will be sharing our ideas with the Australian people, and we will be listening to the ideas of the Australian people. It'll be a conversation between equals about what sort of party we wish to be. The work of rebuilding Labor does not belong to me alone or to the National Executive or to the Cabinet or to the caucus. The work of rebuilding Labor belongs to all of us who love the Labor Party. Together we can make Labor as big, bold and open as the nation within which we live. We owe this duty to ourselves and to our nation. We owe to Australia a modern Labor Party for a modern Australia. Thank you very much.